It goes without saying that a good chord progression is fundamental to a good song, but when you find yourself facing the dreaded blank screen, how do you go about stringing a suitable set of chords together? The chord progressions used in most pop songs are relatively simple, mostly made up of a cycle of between 2 and 4 chords diatonic to the song's key. Diatonic just means that the chords are made up from notes in the parent scale of the key, so if a song is in the key of, say, E major, then the majority of the notes in the melody will be found in the E major scale, and the notes that make up the supporting chords will be taken from the E major scale too, barring 1 or 2 exotic exceptions maybe. One point that many songwriters habitually start from is when they've come up with a melody line and need a chord progression to fit it. So this month, I'm going to show you how to establish the key your melody might be in, how to generate a palette of chords that work with it, and then finally highlight an example progression using some of those chords. Once you have the basic progression down, you'll be off and running, with that writer's block nothing but a tiny spot in the rear view. Let's start by assuming you have a melody in your head that you've successfully transcribed into your Doors piano roll. Here's an example that I've come up with for the purpose of this tutorial. Our first job is to try and work out the key. So let's start by examining the notes in the melody. If I select each melody note in the piano roll editor from the lowest note upwards, my DAW tells me, in the vertical keyboard display, which notes I'm selecting. In this case, the notes in the melody all seem to be white notes, which means we might be in the key of C major. Except for that third note from the bottom, the very last note, which is a B flat. And B flat is not in the key of C major. Since B flat is the only sharp or flat note used in the melody, it's safe to assume that it might be in the key of F major, as F major is the major scale that contains one flat, B flat. All the other notes used in our melody also occur in the F major scale, which contains the 7 notes F, G, A, B flat, C, D, and E. The 8th note is a repeat of the F root note, 1 octave higher. The only other possible key might be F major's relative minor key of D minor, since this shares the same notes as F major, and therefore also only contains a single flat, B flat. However, we can rule out the likelihood of a minor key simply because of the melody's upbeat, cheerful tone, which definitely suggests a major rather than minor quality. The parent scale of a key is the one that shares its name. So if we suspect the song's key is F major, then the parent scale will be the F major scale. To get the diatonic chords for the key, we need to harmonise the parent scale. And this is done by going through the notes or degrees in the scale and stacking up every other note to make 3-note chords or triads. Now that we have the diatonic chords, we can label them using Roman numerals, based on the position of each chord sequentially within the harmonised scale. We use uppercase numerals to denote major chords, and lowercase for minor and diminished chords. There's always one diminished chord, the 7 chord, in a harmonised major scale. The benefit of using the Roman numeral system to label diatonic chords like this is that you can spell out a progression regardless of its key. Then, once you know what the 1 chord is, it'll have the tonic note of the parent scale as its root note, you can work out the relative positions of all the other chords that are diatonic to that particular key. So, for example, a 4, 1, 5, 6 progression in the key of F major works out as B flat major, F major, C major, D minor. Because the 4 chord in F major is B flat major, the 1 chord is F major, the 5 chord is C major, and the 6 chord is D minor. However, in the key of C major, the same progression would go F major, C major, G major, A minor. Because the 4 chord in the key of C major is F major, the 1 chord is C major, and so on. As another example, there are literally thousands of songs that use 1, 5, 6, 4, as superbly demonstrated by the Axis of Awesome in their famously epic 4 chords medley. So, now that we have the diatonic chords all identified and labelled up, we can try to find a chord progression that might fit our melody notes. The most commonly used chords in any key are the primary chords, namely the 1, 4, and 5 chords. So how about starting with just a 1, 4, 4, 5 progression? In this key, this would work out as F major, B flat major, B flat major again, and C major. That works okay. The top notes in the chords match up nicely to the melody notes, so we're on track. We could vary things a little though by slipping in a subtle 2 chord, a G minor chord, as the 3rd chord in the progression to balance things out and give us a nice rounded 4 chord 1, 4, 2, 5 progression. Once we've got a chord sequence that works, we've essentially got the chords to this part of our song, so we're free to alter the rhythm and the sound to create a complementary part to the melody. Here, I've stuck with 1, 4, 2, 5, and used a choppy rhythmic synth part, courtesy of June CM's 055 Marimba RH preset. To smooth out the chord changes, I've used inverted versions of some of the chords, with the notes stacked in different order from bottom to top. And to finish things off, I've added drums and a bass part based on the root notes of the chords, but which also uses chord tones from the parent F major scale.